How's it going, everybody? My name is Box, and I actually just snapped my fingers into the mic because we're back with a Kun-Lai Campfire podcast on our favorite expansion, time-running Pandaria. But this isn't just any regular Halo 2 themed podcast. We're back with Banarak, Jakai, and special guest Sixten. Welcome, everybody.
Oi.
Hello.
Hello there. To be here.
So we're going to be talking about Mists of Pandaria remix and our overall thoughts on it, what we liked, what we didn't like, from a story and gameplay perspective. And I think this week, like, I want to start off with like just all of our general thoughts on it, like what we thought. Like I'll try to keep mine as brief as possible, but we'll kind of share our experience with it. So, like, the stuff that, like, I really enjoyed about MoP Remix was actually just replaying the questing again, and it's funny enough, like, I main a Pandaren, I love Mists of Pandaria, but I found quests that I never did before. I thought I did the Dread Wastes before, but I never did, and I never knew about those Chen Stormstout quests. Those were amazing, and I'm really glad I got to finally do, like, a full Lore Master run of Mists of Pandaria through this, and the rewards for the questing felt really good to earn. Like the keg was a big want for me for a long time as a Pandaren main. Like the Chen's hat was amazing. Even the Sha enchant I use on my Orc Priest. So the rewards felt really good. Playing through MoP's story, playing it again made me realize how well done the flow of the questing felt in MoP. While it was kind of, it's not a linear expansion where I feel like it's linear, but you get more choice of like where you go to. And that's something I think I could really appreciate about it, where like, while you could kind of start in any zone, and I love Dragonflight, don't get me wrong, but like the newer expansions, like something, it doesn't have that same magic that MoP has in some ways, or even like WoD's questing or Legion's questing. I really like, in BFA's questing, I think like Shadowlands and Dragonflight were good, but they didn't meet that high of like MoP's questing for me. So like the high of the time running was doing that stuff again and replaying the story. I think having an accelerated landfall was amazing, actually, where you don't have to do the dailies. I bet you there's a lot of people that experienced one of the darker stories in Warcraft for the first time. Woe and behold, again, like the Dread Waste, it was something that I watched on Noble87's YouTube channel back in the day. So I got to experience it for the first time in the game, and I really enjoyed it. It just reminds you what an evil guy Garrosh is. But back in MoP, I loved, like, there's stuff that I think the story felt like left out too. Like, you don't get to experience it quite the same, like the Darkspear Rebellion, all that stuff, the Rathian questline. So you're only seeing, like, not like half, but like 3/4 of the storyline. But like as a whole, like I think it is a decent way for people that didn't play MoP to like experience that storyline. The gameplay loop is interesting, where you have like the gems, where I think like the Narcissus add-on made that feel a lot better. But the gameplay loop feels very repetitive after a while at the end game, but it was fine while leveling, in my opinion, aside from some tuning. The end game loop was basically just grinding for loot, mounts. But at the same time, I'm really happy Blizzard provided a clear way to get rewards that people might have been farming for. I'm one of those people that has been farming Tusks of Manaroth forever. Finally got them through this. Also, thank you, Blizzard, for putting Shado-Pan Mog in the game as a Pandaren main. Cannot understate how amazing that is to have that now. So those Mogs, those reskins, this is a great... That's great. Like, I think the rewards were amazing in MoP Remix. And it's one of the things that have kept people playing now. Like, I still log on. I have most of the stuff I want, but I'm still playing it currently. I do think there's something to be said about the end game. Like, I think with the accelerated bronze gain, that felt good. I think at the start, you know, I didn't do the frog farming, but all the drama with that and stuff, like, there's stuff to be said about that, and I hope like the next expansion we get kind of keeps what the end of MoP Remix is, like the lessons learned from it, because again, a lot of it felt somewhat grindy, but at the same time, it's fun experiencing some of those rep stuff a little bit like faster than usual. Like you feel good about it, and like I enjoyed, again, Landfall. If you haven't played it, I highly recommend you do it. You also get your class ensemble from it. Playing the Isle of Thunder quest was amazing. Again, I really love, that's one of my favorite quest lines in the game, where Terran Zoo interrupts Jaina and Lorthamar, And also Taoshi is one of the coolest Shado-Pan, hands down. But that quest line was really fun to replay. And you get your class arsenals for doing both, so make sure at the time of this recording it's like 50 days left. Make sure you hop on and do that if you haven't. But yeah, like overall, like I feel like I had a fairly positive time with Mop Remix, and I'm a little bit biased again because I love Pandaria and Pandaria, so I had a really fun time. And again, I love the characters in Mr. Pandaria. I can't understate that enough. Now, I've gone on quite a box ramble. Again, like I would just say fairly positive for me. Definitely stuff that I think they could work on in terms of like the flow of the gameplay and maybe some of those story elements. Hopefully this is a good like test for maybe stuff that's missing from Mop Classic, like when they import those servers. But yeah, I had a fairly positive experience in terms of like a dead zone in the game. Like I probably wouldn't have gone back and done some of that stuff if this didn't exist, if I'll be honest. But really love Mr. Pandaria. But yeah, no, that's my thoughts. I think since Sixten's our guest today, I'm gonna throw it out to him what his thoughts were on this. What you thought about it? Did you enjoy playing like the story again? The like, because Mr. Pandaria just like spitball your thoughts like I did.
Yeah, I think Mop Remix is something really interesting, especially as like a proposition for what we can do with this like end of expansion lore. Because like just as a premise, there's always going to be like an end of expansion lore, just like with how you make video games. And so kind of filling it with this reused quote unquote content and something that is more systems based is a really clever idea. Because famously, like Shadowlands Season 4 was made by like, 3 people? So, you know, you can make these sort of systems changes with way less man work than like literally brand new content. You know, it doesn't require like art teams and all that. So like as a basis, the idea of doing a remix for at the end of expansion, just kind of relive something, really good idea. But I was really excited going into Mob Remix, but I'm actually kind of mixed on it now. From a gameplay standpoint, from just like a casual standpoint, had a lot of fun. Because I did get to relive the story, and I actually started the game in Mop when I was 12. And fun fact about 12-year-olds, there's nothing going on behind their brain. So I didn't really like process Mop back in the day. I just have like vague memories of it. So like going back and playing Mop, it's kind of like this like contrast between like modern World of Warcraft and then, because like Mop was like 10 years ago, and so much changes about the game in like these little ways you don't even realize. Like a tiny detail that I think about is there's those little quests where it's like, hey, go loot these things around in a pond, and it uses the like pick up loot sparkles to designate like what you need to pick up. And that I was completely lost. I'd spend like 30 minutes on a quest trying to figure out what to do because my brain just tunes that out. And it's like the language of how they do quests has changed over the years. And it's interesting to see how like things evolve over like a decade of Warcraft. And then that also goes in just how they do expansions. I think Mop is super noticeable for how well its world building is and what we do during the quest experience, because you spend so much time like in little villages just helping out with their problems or doing bigger things. You know, they spend pretty much almost most of Mop's intro, leveling experience explaining what Mop is, like Pandaria is, and where it's been and why it was hidden. And I think that, is contrasted to something like the Dragon Isles, which we're doing now. I think it's pretty easy to compare the two of them because they're like vacation expats. They're pretty chill relative to your normal calamities. But, you can compare the world building of Mop to the Dragon Isles, and I think it's like a world of difference. We're finishing up Dragonflight, and we're still not entirely sure the specifics on why it was hidden, how it was revealed, and what caused it to get revealed in the first place, versus Mop, where we have like this super defined answer. And then, like, why are the Dragonkin still around? What do they do while the dragons were gone? Like, Dragonflight has an all right story, and it spends a lot of its screen time doing other things. It doesn't like take the time to do all this world building that back in the day Mop did. And I think that kind of shows the change in direction of Warcraft storytelling, where it's more character driven versus the more world based storytelling of the past. And I just made a video on that. you know, like I've always
I was
thought that,
about
like,
to mention that the video. Sorry to be
yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I remember you said that. I totally agree with that though. Like it does feel like a little bit of a different direction. But I'll let you continue. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, like going back like 10 years, you know, you can tell that like it's an entirely different group of people who made MoP versus who made Dragonflight. You know, I don't know what the average tenure at Blizzard is, but you know, I guess it's less than 10 just because of how careers work. And so the vast majority of people who worked on MoP are somewhere else, and it's just different people working on it now. And you can kind of see that shift in like who is making the game. One of my favorite bits of world building, just period, in World of Warcraft is how the Pandaren have this like culture based off like being zen and super chill, which could be seen as kind of generic and maybe a bit stereotypy based off its inspirations. But then you put the world building in that, oh yeah, an old god died on their continent and it haunts the land, and so your emotions become manifest. And it's like, oh, that's why their culture manifested that way. Or you have like Pandaren monks learned to not use weapons because they were staging a rebellion where they didn't have access to weapons. You know, it's those kind of like super detailed answers that we tend not to get nowadays on these kind of like smaller questions you might not think of. Or like how the Mantid come over the wall every few years. They could have just stopped there, but then they explained, oh, we send our babies as like newborns to cull the weak. You know, you get to see both sides of how they perceive this event, and that's something that I feel like the modern game doesn't really do. You know, as I said in that one video, I don't think that that's bad. Like I'm just like MoP's good, modern bad. I think it just shows the difference. And I think that's the most interesting thing that stuck out of me when replaying MoP is just, you can see just so starkly how World of Warcraft is made, how the story is told over the course of 10 years. Now, completely unrelated, the gameplay side of it. And I feel like we should talk about this a lot more. I feel like the Warcraft community, being as power hungry as they are, kind of shows an issue when you try to do these like fun little side modes, because for a lot of people metagaming is really fun. Like for me, you know, I do Mythic Raids, I do Mythic Plus, I love just like getting all my secondary stats, pushing everything. Back when Borrowed Power was a thing, I was farming Azerite like crazy. But when you do something like that's like a throwaway fun side mode like MoP Remix, you kind of run into some issues where people like that either get like super powerful and people who are taking it casually aren't. And that can be fine. You just stay in your lane, do your own thing. But since Warcraft is an MMO, there's like a social pressure to that. I've talked to a lot of people, and myself included, I actually kind of fell off of MoP Remix because you feel like you're letting people down by not being as uber powerful as they are, especially when it's as uncapped as it is. You can just keep going. I know there is a theoretical limit, but you know, for practical purposes, you know, it is either you're super insanely powerful or you're just not, or you're somewhere in between. And this was a problem we had with Borrowed Power back in the day too, but because that was like an expansion level feature, we're able to, you know, put design resources into something like Artifact Knowledge, where there's a soft cap and over the weeks it like builds up. And like that works when, you know, it's the main feature of an expansion. But when we're just trying to do like a goofy side mode to keep people busy while we're waiting for the next expansion, we don't need to like bury it in these systems of like Artifact Knowledge. So I get why they didn't do it, but you know, you can kind of see why those systems existed in the first place. And you know, that's kind of like how I feel about the gameplay of MoP Remix is I kind of wish that it was just more normal instead of like hyper OP. Like if you could just play MoP Remix, just play through all the quests, do the raids as they were intended, because I missed a lot of them because I was new at the game, and I wish I got to like see how the raid fights were, you know, so I could see how raid fight design has changed over 10 years rather than blasting through it. Because, you know, the most interesting part to me was seeing the contrast between modern story versus past story. I wish I could do the same for gameplay, but since we're so super powerful, it's mostly just nuking everything. And that's a Sixten ramble. I believe I went like 50% longer than you did. Boom.
You no, you brought up a lot of good points. Like I have a friend, I'll say by name Evo, who kind of felt exactly the same. Like he wanted to experience the raids as they were, and he was almost saying like it would have felt better like to even just have them pick like one tier that you gear through or something. But I do think like playing through the raids as they are right now is almost a disservice, because MoP had some pretty fun raids. Like I really like Throne and Siege. Like I really like Siege of Orgrimmar. Besides like Galacrest, fuck that fight. But like The rest of it's
yeah, like
really
people
good.
talk about WoD Remix as like they say that would be a great expansion to a remix for, because it was really good content for what we got, but it was, you know, very short, and so, you know, that'd be a great remix. And I think going into that, what most people talk about when they say it's good content is how well designed the fights were and how fun they were. I feel like if we did WoD Remix, we would just explode it and we would blast through what little content there was very quickly. So I think if we did a WoD Remix, it should just be more just, you know, the grinding part is just super fast. Apex's crystals, gone, you know?
Yeah.
It is just gearing, doing the raids, seeing them, doing the quests, you know, maybe some accelerated rep farms. It should be a way to go back and like 100% an expansion that you weren't around for. And that's it. Like, I'm kind of asking Blizzard to do less.
I absolutely agree with that. I think like even just regular gearing would feel better for questing, because sometimes like I know when I was leveling, I'd get an upgrade and be like, but I'd have to change the gems and stuff before the Narcissus add-on existed.
Yeah,
like,
pre-Narcissus was a pain. I streamed like 20 hours of my remix leveling, and it was always like when I got when I opened a box, I was like, when I compared the gear, I was hoping it wasn't an upgrade. And that's probably a bad thing, design-wise. When you get an upgrade, you're like, oh man, I don't want to do this right now. I just want to keep playing.
No, that was great, Six. I do agree with a lot of what you said with that, to be honest. So I think next we'll throw it out. You know what? Since Ban is actually an AI, which we confirmed off screen, we're gonna throw it out to Jakai next. So.
You know what? I support you, Ben. AI or not.
I'm afraid I will not allow you to live anymore, Box.
Sorry, Banarak.
They are going to be the Overlords one day, so you should mind your tongue. Well, I mean, as a Pandaren main / Pandaren lover, whenever I heard about this, I was freaking excited. I have had a good bit of fun with it, but admittedly, I did kind of burn out pretty quickly, as mentioned before by Six. I'm in love with the cosmetics and the rewards that you get that we're going to be able to use in live and all this other good stuff. I can't tell you for how long I was complaining that, like, oh my gosh, you know, Pandaria has all these beautiful items that are just simply not obtainable. Like, Miss Pandaria is over, you'll never see these gorgeous, like, Pandaren themed and, you know, other, you know, Pandarian, like, race themed things again. And now we have a means of finally getting them. In terms of content, though, admittedly, I played Miss Pandaria so much that I was like, yeah, this is kind of cool to do again at, like, a level where it feels competitive, at least starting out that way. But it was admittedly very strange to play it with modern class design. I low-key was kind of hoping for the old Mistweaver to come back. Please, give me that back one day. But although it really doesn't feel all that different than it used to. It's hard to say too much because admittedly all I really do is just I do my dailies, and I'm trying to power up my character as much as I can to make getting bronze in the future that much better. And then I'm gonna try and get every single thing, and it's kind of cool. I won't say it's the best thing in the world, not the best thing in WoW, but I am definitely here a lot more than I am on retail at the moment. And yeah, I do kind of hope for / I did kind of hope for like almost like a phase system like they did in Classic. Maybe even just like very brief ones, you know, a few weeks, maybe a month. Or it's just like, hey, this is the first patch, you know, second patch, third patch. We could have seen the Rebellion over again. If people wouldn't lose their minds, you know, maybe challenge modes could have been a thing again. Old sets or recolors, you know, that might be kind of cool. And it might have been nice to see the Veil without it being covered in, you know, Shaw corruption or Old God corruption again. But yeah, overall, pretty good. I was
one little thing to add there. The Veil specifically. I started the game after that happened, and I remember as a kid I was told, oh man, the Veil used to look so freaking pretty, dude. Oh my god, you missed out. You missed the Veil. And then I'm like, oh, Mob Remix, I get to finally see the Veil. And then nope. And I find it so funny that I just don't get to ever see it. That's probably just never gonna happen.
Yeah, there were a lot of dailies there too that added a lot of personification to some of the characters that you can no longer really interact with anymore. I can't think of the names off the top of my head, but like some of the raid bosses, for example, and
like Rook Stonetoe and
yeah,
I forget the other two. He Softfoot, I think. Is that his name?
Huh Softfoot and
Sun. I think Sun. I don't know her last name though.
Yeah, but yeah, like there, as far as most people that started the game since then, there's just raid bosses, but like no, they had personalities and dailies and blah blah blah. So, I mean, maybe and I say once we get a Mists of Pandaria classic, because I mean that's too good an opportunity to pass up. That has to happen, I hope.
Oh, it's coming for sure.
It's definitely coming. It's got to.
You brought up phasing, like classic or like season of discovery, and I think that's a really interesting point because it was fun at first, but like as we said earlier, there's still 50 days to go. I feel like we're gonna like, that's more like a deadline to get all your stuff. But I feel like if we want to actually like keep entertained, we are gonna start hitting like in a week or two, or maybe a little longer. We might hit a wall where it's just like, yeah, all right. Like a lot of people are like 100%ing it now, and I guess that depends on if you think Mop Remix should be something that keeps us busy until the next expansion comes out, or if it's just a fun little side mode to poke around in while you do season 4.
Yeah,
I actually really like that idea, Kai. Like where you had with the phasing, I think that would have been really cool. Where like we get a week of like just Terrorists, Heart of Fear, like all those raids, and then you introduce Landfall, and like even if it's like a faster layout, like you do it like week by week, I think that would be kind of cool, just for like a community standpoint. Like
I'm gonna say like maybe 2 weeks or even a month, although a month might drag on quite a bit. But I'd say like maybe 2 weeks of each phase might have been kind of nice.
Kind of like how they do the faded raids almost, like with season 4. That'd be kind of cool. Like I like Dragonflight season 4 and Shadowlands season 4. Like I've kind of felt bad not having time to play it, but I've been enjoying Remix quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the boat there. I just
probably
don't have a lot of time.
Few people that's pro season 4. I think it's just a fun way to end an expansion, like a victory lap.
Yeah.
Especially now with like Mythic Plus being like, oh, we have old dungeons in them, but we do not have dungeons from the previous expansion. So season 4 allows you to like really play all the dungeons before they're gone for 2+ years.
It's a really good way for like people that like say like you didn't play Aberrus and you came back to the game for the last patch. Like it's a really nice way to experience that content. Like I really like that. I even like I didn't like Shadowlands, but I even liked it in Shadowlands, like as a concept. I enjoyed Shadowlands season 4 quite a bit gameplay wise. It was really fun. But yeah, Kai, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Just a little bit. I would say the only thing, and this isn't a major gripe, but the only disappointing thing with the cosmetics thing is that we didn't get the robe version of the Shado-Pan set.
Yes, or the Hunter Mask,
Yeah, or that one, yeah, like the rogue. Yeah, that's so awesome.
There's also the weapons thing, the random drop weapons.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask. I was going to bring it up, but I was like, I feel like by now that's probably been... Maybe they've already done something about it and I just didn't hear about it. But so they have not like kind of buffed or like let you buy them somewhere or anything?
Nope.
Ugh. I don't like that.
There's also I feel like it's something that we all kind of like made our peace with, but also the challenge mode sets.
Yeah.
Just give us a recolor of them. I am actually on the team of like don't bring them back, but give us a recolor. Like the fact that the model is completely unobtainable. Blizzard really underutilizes the concept of recolors.
They exist already too.
Yeah, I think like social value, quote unquote, of armor is like important in an MMO. Because like I posted some guy holding a corrupted Ashbringer on Twitter and I got like 2K likes, and that's like most of my tweets got like 4 likes, and I feel like that is important to an MMO. Is like that sort of like you walk around and be like, oh, that dude's cool, It's more for our experience as people looking at the people with the rare stuff than it is for them. But also like, I also just want the model from that Brewmaster armor. I don't care much for its specific color, and so when it comes to like the social value, if I have the green Brewmaster Challenge mode set, people will know it's not the super rare one. But as me, who just wants a keg on my shoulder, I'm happy, you know?
Right. And I think like for role players too, like it's really important. Like I don't really role play. Like once in a while I will, but like I think it's important to have that stuff available for people in the RP community, especially like even as recolors, you know, like I think it would have been a good addition for sure, for sure. And I think like six, like you said earlier, like the people that like to do like mythic rating and stuff, like in more challenging content, that could have been a fun thing for them in Remix.
Oh yeah, just like put challenge mode back in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's another thing is I wish the build crafting challenged you more, because you can't just like nuke everything to the point where it doesn't really matter what you do, you know? All right, let's boot up the AI.
All right, we'll boot up the AI, as well as mention and echo what Kai said. The Pandaran rewards are amazing for us Pandarans. I've really enjoyed them, like on my monk and box, but especially.
What do you
box.
mean the Pandaran rewards? Them?
The Worgen monk.
That's my hat. That's my hat.
The Sixten hat.
Boo! You're just borrowing it.
All right, Mr. Bladesnaw. The man, the Mok'Nathal, the guy who likes Rexar, who likes Thrall. Share your remix thoughts.
And Sylvanas.
And Sylvanas. He loves Sylvanas, everybody. Like
I actually didn't know he liked Rexar. Never heard of that.
Yeah, no, me too, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe
Rexar?
I should go on for an hour about that.
who's Rexar? I don't know who that is. Anyway.
I thought you were more of
Well.
a Crexus fan band.
I thought he was a survival hunter, but he doesn't have a two-hander, and so, you know, he can't be a survival hunter.
I'm gonna scream.
There's gonna be violence in here.
I've been locked up as an AI apparently now. All right, good old Mr. Pandaria remix. Mostly positive. I mean, I have always been very expressive about the fact that Mr. Pandaria is the best WoW expansion in terms of story, and even in partially gameplay. I mean, I don't have a lot to say on gameplay usually, but as far as remix goes, there's a lot of issues in terms of gameplay, but I'll get into that later. But like re-experiencing the story was like the main quality as far as remix goes, and getting that for the most part through all of the zones and the Landfall and Throne of Thunder. I remain firm that Landfall is underrated. I think a lot of people, you know, Throne of Thunder, Isle of Thunder gets a lot of praise. I like it too, but I think Landfall doesn't get as much appreciated gems as the other one did. Mainly because of the stuff, you know, with the Sunreavers, Nazgrim, Garrosh, the Divine Bell, Anduin, the Monkey King, which is Alliance only. I always thought that was weird, that the Monkey King, the leader of the Hosen, is an Alliance only character. That always felt weird to me, but alright. I think that the negatives regarding remix, it falls more under what isn't in remix. As was talked about, the Veil of Eternal Blossoms, it's Shaw-fied already. It's already gunked up. You don't get to experience it how it once was, which kind of sucks because you don't get to know, oh hey, we have the Thunder King stuff here. That's one of the story beats from it back then. You don't get to hang out with Rathian and undergo his storyline, which I feel like is a massive missed opportunity, because I feel like a lot of the stuff regarding Rathian in MoP is just an avalanche of what happens in Warlords of Draenor and Legion and BFA, and even probably with the World Soul Saga, considering the Titan stuff that Rathian gets to hiccup after eating a heart. And then of course my favorite bit, not getting to do the Darkspear Rebellion. That is one of my favorite parts, and back in Wyrmrest Accord, back in the RP scene, that was one of like the best moments in city RP there ever was, because you got to take back the city from the Kor'kron and rebel. And I love that bit. That was great back then.
I'm so sorry. Just want to admit, dude, that was like the best time for RP. That's all I'm gonna say. It was so awesome.
Was. I back then I roleplayed as Bannerac, and he was beating the shit out of Kor'kron and saving people's lives from being held captive in Orgrimmar. It was stupendous. It was one of the best times to RP, and I'm so glad that was around the same time that I joined Wyrmrest. Obviously, Mr. Pandaria is not my first expansion like it was for 6. That was Wrath of Lich King, and Wrath of Lich King remains my second favorite, but Mr. Pandaria beat it. But yeah, for the narrative stuff, it really sucks that people don't get to experience Rathian storyline, the Rebellion, the Veil. At the very least, they kept some stuff in there. Like, I didn't know that they kept the Shao-Hao quest in there still, so I'm glad that was still a thing people could do. I thought they actually removed that, so that was nice to know that it was still a thing.
It's a good change to the rep, too, where you can grind it really quickly now.
Oh yeah, they did that recently. I still hate that rep. Shao-Hao rep is one of the worst reps they ever did. I'm sorry. Worlds of Draenor comes pretty close, though, with the Apexis grinds. I'll talk a little bit about the sequel to Mr. Pandaria's remix in a bit, because there's issues I have with it being Worlds of Draenor, only because, yeah, you will run out of content pretty quickly there. I mean, the questing's amazing in WoD, but there's not a lot for you to really do. And I feel like a caveat would be let people do the legendary quest line then, because that at least gives them a little bit more to chew on than without it. Gameplay wise, again, not really much of a gameplay guy, but Remix's gameplay was kind of not it for me. I mean, I initially liked it, like I often do, but it definitely felt like it did more harm than good. As an example, I have seen people on Twitter basically talk about how in certain groups, they basically just got booted because they were not a Frogger. And to explain what a Frogger is, if you don't know, it's people who grinded frogs on the Timeless Isle like you did back in the day, to get more power early on. It was a very easy way to get it. Yeah, I do not like how it became very gatekeepy, depending on, you're not ahead like we are. You need to catch up. You need to do your frog due diligence or whatever. Yeah, no. I didn't like that. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to add. Again, Mr. Pandaria is great. I think that this was a nice format for the end of an expansion, to the end of Dragonflight, to have us get some nice cosmetics. The nice cosmetics are probably the best part of it, and being able to get, you know, Chen's hat on your back and your head. I feel like that needs to be an homage, by the way, with the Pandaren Heritage armor, just saying. The mounts that you could get, the recolors of armor sets that weren't available, making several things cosmetic, finally getting the Shado-Pan set. Oh, thank you. But yeah, to magnificent, as Ajar would say. But I do agree that we could have gotten a replica of the challenge mode gear or something. Oh, I finally remember what I really wanted to say. I love Siege of Orgrimmar. I do. Probably one of my favorite raids of all time with its finale narratively. Everything narrative about it is great. Farming the Bones of Manaroth every day... I'm done, by the way. I already got all my stuff from it. But doing that to get the heirlooms was a nightmare. I love Siege of Orgrimmar, but they should have added the Bones of Manaroth to the other raids. So if you do something like this again, for Warlords of Draenor or Legion or something, and they give us, I don't know, something cool out of it that you need to farm by killing Antorus over and over again, don't. I would rather do the other raids on normal and heroic and mythic than having to farm Siege of Orgrimmar nonstop, because much as I like the raid, as I've reiterated like 5 times now, I'm kind of sick of it. And to preface this, I farmed Siege of Orgrimmar every week on like 3 to 4 characters for the Tusks of Manaroth for 6 years. Never once was I sick of Siege of Orgrimmar. Time running has changed that. That's how bad we're at. I mean, it was every day instead of every, week. But still,
yeah,
I'm very...
Ben, you bring up a great point with that. Going back to Six's initial thing. And I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think there's something to say about making it more regular gameplay oriented than what we have now, because I do wonder if it's gonna affect how people view some of that content, like if they get sick of running it over and over again, you know. But that's something to bring up. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you up, but I think that was just interesting. It was a good point.
It's a good way for me to transition in talking about the future for time running, because I do think time running is going to come back in Midnight and War Within and Last Titan. I do think it's going to come back. I don't know in what form. I don't know what expansion. I also think Plunderstorm will come back in another form too, just like I said. Hope it does what I suggested in my own video a while back of like, here's the storm, but in World of Warcraft. I know everyone wants to play as Rexxar here. You can't lie to me.
Or Chen or Garrosh.
Wait, who's Rexxar? Sorry, like I said, I started in MoP. I don't know all these old characters.
So is this the segment of the video where I get to explain who Rexxar is, Box?
No.
Nope. You're banned from that AI.
It's a bit.
It's a bit.
Shit.
You can explain how you wanted Rexxar in 5.3 banned, and he was.
Don't worry, I watched the
Platinum
video. Otherwise, I wouldn't know who he is because he's not in anything.
I actually just
And
asked
irrelevant.
ChatGPT who Rexxar is, and they were explaining they were like Reptar from the Rugrats. So it must not be important. I don't think it's important.
Wait, Reptar? I thought it was actually Sylvanas Windrunner was Rexxar, and like, is that true ban?
Could be an alternate identity.
This AI is self-destruct. As I was saying before, the Rexxarisms came in, as they often do. So yeah, Warlord's Journal could be next. Honestly, would probably make a lot of sense, all things considered. The only thing that I would, and like, yeah, this is probably going to be more for WoD Classic, if they do WoD Classic. They do MoP Classic, awesome. And if they do MoP Classic, that's probably the best thing, because that way people actually get to experience the Rathian questline and the Rebellion and all the other stuff in the way that it was supposed to be, which is great. That's what I hope MoP Classic is.
So I have one unhinged thing to say. I think WoD Remix is going to be next for two reasons. One, Blizzard likes to pretend that all expansions are equally, like they just created equal. They just did Cataclysm Classic, they just ripped that. Regardless of its reputation compared to other expansions, just like with no hold back, they just would go straight into Cataclysm Classic. Like there's not like an elephant in the room. Second, this is the more unhinged thing, but the remixes, if you go in sequential order, kind of line up with the kind of expansion that they're ending with. MoP is a vacation expec. Dragonflight's a vacation expec. You go into WoD, it's the setup for the big invasion. War Within is the setup for the big invasion. Legion, Midnight, boom. Like it just kind of.
Holy cow!
And here, I will agree with you there, because there's some what's the George Lucas line? It's like poetry. It rhymes. Yeah. Thrall and Gazlowe are two main Horde characters in War Within.
I love
Thrall and Gazlowe are two main characters in Warlords of Draenor. So yeah. You're onto something there. I also just think it makes sense to do WoD next because of cosmetic rewards. There is a shit ton of Rylak mounts that they did not add in the game that I'm still mad about, because to jump off that Rexxarism, Rexxar was probably supposed to give us a Rylak mount storyline like the Nether Drakes. Because there's a weird random quest in Shado-Pan Valley where Rexxar is helping out a Rylak matriarch. Doesn't go anywhere. It's random. It's a very random quest, and it's in the exact area where the Netherwing questline was. Why would they do that? My guess is, again, I'm a very speculative person. We were probably supposed to get another Drake-like questline, mount chain, with Rylak mounts. We would have gotten a ton of Rylak mounts that we never got. So, yay. They should add Rylak mounts, by the way, Blizzard, for the World of Draenor time running, because, yes.
I think there's a common, Twitter thing that people talk about where, I would love WoD Remix. They could add all that stuff they cut. But,
yeah,
just as a premise, Remix is something that, a few people can do to keep us busy.
Oh yeah, I know.
In our face until the next expansion. So WoD Remix, I feel like we can't go to the assumption that they'll do anything to it. And so I'm not. they add phasing, like classic, and then they just kind of tone back the gameplay a bit and just let us play the game a bit. Just let us do the dungeons. Put Mythic Plus in it. Screw it.
Kind of remove the... I'd say remove the level of grindiness that MoP has right now, where it's like you need to get in every day to farm this. World of Warcraft should have a little bit less, and just kind of like like you said earlier, where it's like I kind of want to have less to do here. I want to kind of just
I think that
go in.
Brings us something else I want to talk about, just completely yap about. A lot of the time when we talk about time gating in WoW, we've always come at it with the perspective of it's to stop us from eating through all the content too quickly, or to the more cynical approach of like, oh, they're just trying to drag out our sub fees. But I think daily resets on everything in MoP Remix has taught us time things kind of protect regular players from the meta fiends. Because like we're talking about like how MoP Remix kind of has this plague of like, oh, you're not a frogger. They compensate that, but like you don't have this cape that's like super leveled. When you just let people grind just as much as they want with daily resets, the average player can just get completely left in the dust. And since WoW is a inherently social game where you have to group with people to get any farther, it just spreads farther and farther without like these safeguard systems in place, like artifact knowledge back in the day. And so I think, like I was saying earlier, Remix doesn't have the resources to put these safeguards in place like we did with Legion or BFA, where it's like these systems protect you from the meta people who will completely leave you in the dust if they're given the chance to. And, MoB has kind of showed us that that's what those are there for. I feel like we like underappreciated that when we were actually playing through the expansions where these safeguards were in place. So I think if we do Remix in the future, because we can't have these safeguards, we need to just kind of tone back the level that you're able to grind, just period. I don't think we need to add like complicated systems where you need to go on Wowhead and figure out what weeks you're able to get a certain percentage of threads. Like let's just not go there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think if you give people an inch with like, infinite power, they'll keep going. And like, I also think too, like, I know we mentioned it earlier, but like, I didn't particularly want MoP Remix to replace Dragonflay for me in Season 4, if that makes sense, but it kind of did. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed MoP Remix, don't get me wrong. But I also have stuff I still would like to do in Dragonflay, and I feel like I'm picking and choosing now because MoP Remix is limited time. It's
I might be cooking a little too hard, but if we tone back the gameplay side, the number one feedback that both Plunderstorm and Remix has from your more average player is that they can't play as their regular character. If we tone back the gameplay side a bit to where, a regular character becomes more quote-unquote compatible with Remix, the way that a retail character now just doesn't translate to Remix because of how different the gearing works, I could see Season 4 being replaced by just time running.
Yeah,
all the Plus dungeons are WoD dungeons. All the raids are awakened WoD raids. Like it's on a cycle. It's just awakened WoD.
I think that would be really fun, to be honest. And I would be so game for that.
And then have Chromie time leveling be like awakened as well for WoD. Like add an XP boost, add some gameplay changes here and there. Let you level in it, but also just let you bring a max level character over and just start gearing through WoD.
I think that would be very a good way of honoring both. Oh hey, here's something for your actual character to do, and here's something for your alts to do. But I mean, again, I really I was trying to say before tangents happen, which they do on this podcast all the time. I was just trying to say that Warlords of Draenor time running would be the perfect time to include all of those relic mounts and other cosmetic rewards, and also all those again, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, we only recently got the aforementioned Gorehowl from Grommash, the one that he originally
I was
wielded,
so happy about that.
That one was added in Dragonflight kind of just on a whim from a time displaced Grommash. And it was awesome to get, but we could have probably also gotten that in WoD time running, probably. There's other weapons we could get. You could get Kargath's actual Blade Fist, not the one from Heimdall, but the actual one. We could get Nerzul's staff. We could get Kilrog's staff. A lot of staffs for orcs for some reason. the really cool Corcoran axes that are in Siege of Orgrimmar but aren't actually in there. That's another thing. Blizzard, you added the Corcoran cloak and the legendary cloaks. That's nice. But where's my Corcoran tabard? And the Corcoran shoulders.
Like the plate and awesome plate. Oh,
it's just the shoulders.
Yeah, I think the shoulders is the only unique piece, but yeah.
Yeah, we don't have, we have the cloak now at least. It's nice. I appreciate that gesture, but there's missing things from MoP still.
I know it would be more dev time, but how cool would it be if, like, at the end of like a time running expansion, you get like one remix boss that's like really challenging and gives you like a title or something, like in Warlords of Draenor, like you fight all the warlords at once or something like that. Like that'd be cool.
You're taking my my original concept for the end of WoD.
I don't know if this is on purpose, but I've noticed that past 2 years, sometimes Blizzard will just kind of like take some ideas from Destiny. I think if they have a favorite, the two MMOs that Blizzard has been looking at is Destiny and Final Fantasy for like ideas to just take, and Guild Wars 2 for flying, but we all know that one.
Yeah.
Destiny just released like Pantheon, or they do like the Age of Triumph. Pantheon is just like the highlights of bosses. Like it's a one raid, but it's just the highlight fights over the years. Like you're saying, like what if you just had one raid where you fight all of the warlords? You could just be like, all right, here's a raid, and it's just the best fights from WoD.
What Torghast should have been with all the
old
evildoers that we faced.
We're talking about like Gorehowl showing up and like time running. So you got to wonder if like the devs are sweating now that Bronze Dragons are leaving the plot again. It just provides such an easy excuse to reuse content constantly.
Yeah, you can have Murazon just be like, oh, I'm happening again. I'm just gonna do some time shenanigans. I know this is kind of out of pocket. I cannot
just
talk.
Rip it.
Out of pocket with things, but the original Worlds of Draenor like introduction was gonna have like the Hourglass of Time and like Kyrogos. Is it Kyrogos? It's Kairos. Kairos Dormer. There we go. Not Kyrogos. It's not a blue dragon. But it was gonna have like a whole like hourglass thing going on in Tanan, and like that would be really cool for them to like reuse those assets that were intended for original WoD and just use it for Eternus and her gang of Infinites. So it'd be cool to like it would be repurposing old assets in an area for time running, and like they wouldn't do anything major with it. Obviously, like it's not like we're changing the timeline. I mean, I do like Taliesin's idea. I think I tweeted about it ages ago when MoP first came out. But like, Eternus is fine with how MoP went, right? Because MoP went pretty hunky-dory for the most part. But Worlds of Draenor was crazy, and a lot of things went wrong and hectic, and it was all timey-wimey. So I really liked like Taliesin's like whole like, well, maybe the Infinites will actually interfere this time and actually start to change things up. Obviously, we have to look at it from the perspective of it's like 3 to 4 developers working on it, so don't expect anything too crazy, but it would be nice. Obviously,
I mean, there was like
it's
alternate Azeroth, like in the early versions of WoD, like it was hinted at.
Oh yeah, there was going to be alternate Medivh.
Because like the Infinites' whole deal is like, you know what? Screw it. These cataclysms and stuff, we should just prevent them. I don't care if you want to say, oh, Arthas was important because then all of these heroes came. Like, no, shut up. We get rid of Arthas. You could do the same with WoD. It's like, let's just stop the Legion invasion for that other Azeroth, you know? Like, you just bring back alternate Azeroth and be like, yeah, no, we actually win this time. We don't send Gul'dan back over. Like, they don't have Legion happen.
See, that's interesting. I'm fascinated by like that stuff. Obviously, they're probably not going to do that. They're going to probably let it play out the same way, but it would be cool to see them go like, oh, well, what happens to Shatrath? Because we didn't get Shatrath raid, and I'm still sad about that. I'm sad about a lot of things in WoD.
I do wish the Infinite Dragon stuff in MoP Remix was more than just window dressing.
Yeah, same.
But I mean, like, I get that there's issues with that because you don't want it to like interfere with the main plot. So like, let's say, you know, some people said like MoP Remix, maybe Xal'atath is wanting something from MoP, and that's but it's
I was gonna say that
messy. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's just like.
See, I was gonna say it would be kind of cool if like there was like an epilogue where you it would again be very hard for them to do, I think. But like you can like at the end of the raid, you let the cinematic play out, Garrosh gets, taken away, and then there's like a little brief a little small cutscene that plays after you talk to Eternus where something is up. Xal'atath walks over, scoops up the nice little pool of ichor that is the remnants of Yasharaj's blood, and then just leaves. Maybe she like gives us a smile and a wink and then leaves or something.
I can't recall where it's from, but it was stated somewhere that the whole Darkheart thing, its whole thing is it absorbs energy and turns it into shadow. So she goes back, sucks up Galakrond. I feel like you could have just like had her show up and suck up Yasharaj.
She
I
could
would have
have
been down for that. That would have been
That
cool.
could have been like, instead of like, obviously we beat Garrosh to a pulp and he absorbs most of the heart, but like maybe it instead is changed. Because here's the one thing that always bothered me about going in from Mop to Wad. Garrosh is obviously Shaw corrupted. We see that on his physical body multiple times. Would have been a really nice way to explain how that got all ripped from his body naturally by having Xal'atath absorb it, instead of it just being beaten out of him by us, because I think it makes way more sense canonically of just being like, alright, this guy gets beaten anyways, I need him to do his thing because domino effect, right? Garrosh's domino effect is so important in WoW's lore, it's crazy how much influence this guy has on just what he does. But you let him do his whole thing, and then she absorbs Garrosh.
So Ban, with
I'm all done.
Oh no,
mostly.
So I think overall we all covered a good bit of how we feel about Mop Remix. Do you all have any final thoughts to wrap it up? Because we usually keep the podcast around 60 minutes. I think overall we agree story was fun. Could be told a little bit better. But gameplay could be better. Like, would that be the TLDR, you think?
Yeah, I think so.
I think what I've learned is that we were right that me and Ban in a room could just yap for hours.
You know what?
Things that will never happen about things that like aren't even on the table. We will go. We will talk about it.
I am 100% okay with that, and I actually really like the excitement about the idea of a WAD time walking.
I like how we now have a very solid idea of what we want out of it, what it should be, and even potential plot points of something we're not even sure will happen.
Wow, welcome to the Kun-Lai Campfire.
And we did talk about Garrosh and Rexxar, which we do every episode. That's a tradition.
Don't say his name again. It's like a Beetlejuice situation.
Every time we play Rexxar, we should have like a what's that one sound effect? That's like a horror sound effect. It's like dun dun. Yeah, you should do that. Or it's like that one TikTok sound. I'm not familiar with the sounds, but
Are you talking about the Jaws?
Podcast?
The Jaws theme?
Yeah, the Jaws thing.
Yeah.
Box does all the editing.
Yeah, you should just like edit, make it look cool. I don't know, I've always wanted to do that. Podcast people do all the time, or streamers. Yeah, just like edit it in like a super cool like effect. Like Rexxar does like a little flip. Yeah.
Do a flip.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much again for being on this episode. I think this was a fun one, and I think Mop Remix showed a lot of potential. Was pretty fun, and I hope Blizzard keeps improving on it. If you guys haven't, check out Sixten on YouTube.
That's me.
Check out Banarak on YouTube, and check out Jakai on Twitter. We're not going to call it x.com. Check him out on Twitter. But yeah, thank you guys again for being on. I think this is a really fun episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always glad to be here.
Thanks for having me.
Hell yeah.
Until next time, everybody.
Rip Nazgrim.
Nazgrim, Garrosh, Rexxar, and Chen. Bye.
Bye.
Fire!